Rumors are starting to escalate regarding a new Toronto Maple Leafs free agency target that they could be looking to acquire this offseason, and that is David Perron. Reports are starting to link the Leafs to him, and there could be mutual interest on both sides. We're going to break that down, as well as discuss what a contract could look like and how he could fit in to this Toronto Maple Leafs team going into next season under Craig Berube. So I'm going to break all it down this episode. Before we do, if you're a part of the 81% who are not subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 11,000 subscribers. Your support has been unbelievable as of late, so make sure to continue to hit that button if you enjoy daily Leafs content. It would mean the world to Darius and myself. But Darius, a lot to go over today. A new target that has not really been spoke about very much in Leafs land as of late, but gaining some traction, and that is David Perron. And we're just going to dive right into it like we always do. So David Perron addresses potentially reuniting with Toronto Maple Leafs Craig Berube, obviously our new coach, as his $9.5 million contract expires. And Darius, David Perron is a very interesting guy, and you can see the actual quotes from David Perron. He said he reminisced about his time under Berube, highlighting the positive impact the coach has had in his career. I think he brought the best out of me. We won a Stanley Cup together. He helped me go to the All-Star game. This is a guy I view as a coach, but for me at this point, it's almost a different relationship. It's more on a personal level, and he's a guy that I rely on and I've talked to in the past over the last couple of years, for different things, different advice. David Perron, we're going to get into his stats. We're going to get into a lot of things here in a little bit. But what are your thoughts on this, Darius? A David Perron, Craig Berube reunion, not necessarily a Leafs reunion, but a Craig Berube reunion, ultimately bringing him to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it could be a very interesting, a pretty good fit, actually, I think. It just depends on the money, and I think he could be a cheaper option, although he is older. And I mean, on Detroit last year, he had a pretty good season as well, like nothing to bat an eye about, but he had a very good season, and his cap hit, like I said, like it could make sense for the Leafs. I think he's a cheaper option than a lot of other forwards that they may have to look into. Like we talked about Tyler Toffoli as well. He'd be a lot cheaper than that. So I'm not sure he's even going to get a raise on the open market. He might. There's been no reports about that just yet. But in terms of coming over and playing with Craig Berube, he obviously loves Craig Berube. They won a Stanley Cup together in St. Louis. St. Louis obviously breaking that streak where they never won the cup after 50-something years. So obviously there's history there. I think it could be a good fit in terms of personnel for the Leafs. And a lot of people are going to laugh at this, but the fact of the matter is, the Leafs are looked upon by some players as a contender. They are. And he's getting older, and I wonder if he's thinking, let me go play with a guy I've won a Stanley Cup with on a really good team and see what happens next year. So I think it could be a real option for the Leafs, especially the way he was talking. He wasn't writing off Detroit, where he played last season, but he was, kind of leaning to the fact that, I would love to play for Craig Berube again.
Yeah, it seems like some very strong comments from David Perron. And it seems like a really good guy. I loved his interview on AP from a few years back. Keeps bringing up he would be a great ad for the power play. I think anyone for the right price. My favorite guy in a role like this, though, is Toffoli. And that's the thing that you mentioned. Would Toffoli end up being a better option? Maybe, I don't know what the contract are going to look like for David Perron, because there hasn't really been many reports regarding that. And you look at some of his stats here, Darius. Obviously, the issue is he's 36 years of age. He put up 47 points in 76 games, averaging only 15 minutes a game on the ice there. I mean, again, he's not going to completely blow you away. Would Toffoli be a better option in this spot? Toffoli is obviously much a good bit younger than David Perron. Could, be a great power play addition. Toffoli doesn't skate necessarily very well, but I don't know. You're looking at his stats; they don't seem too, they don't jump off the table too much. But again, he would be a very niche, not niche necessarily, but a great addition to this team. Who you need players like this on a Stanley Cup contender is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you need players like this to win. And on top of it, if you look at the Leafs lineup next year with salary projections and all that fun stuff, looks like the Leafs are going to have a lot of entry-level contracts, or like Nick Robertson on the third line or second line, right, depending on what happens here. So a player like David Perron could be a very good ad for the Toronto Maple Leafs in a depth role, because like you said, only averaging 15 minutes a night, which was pretty good on that Detroit team, right? He was more of a depth player anyway. So, he's going to come in and get you 50 points like Max Domi did this year, for example, right? And do some really good things for you. I think it's a pretty good fit. I wouldn't say it was a good fit if, things hadn't have changed. But now that you have a new head coach and it looks like the Leafs are going to play a different caliber of hockey, a little bit different caliber of hockey, but it could be a pretty good fit. I like the player too, on a personal note. Won the Stanley Cup. He plays really hard. Like I said, he's not going to put up a bunch of points, but he's a really, really good player and somebody that you need to win. I think he's a winner.
Yeah, I tend to agree as well. I don't know. He just seems like a very interesting guy, and I'll dive into a couple of other things here before we wrap up. So again, this is from Nick Alberga on David Perron. So he is that tough, hard-nosed player you want in the playoffs. I watched a lot of Wings games this season, and when they went on that run and tried to get in there, he just played so heavy, and he always had a smile on his face. Love that attitude. Darius, kind of what you were saying. You just love him as a player. Not going to be easy every night. He's a veteran. A veteran thing would be key here as well. Maybe help augment the core, and I think he would make a lot of sense for this Leafs team. So just a lot of teams linked, or a lot of, reporters linking David Perron to the Leafs. Current contract cap hit is $4.75 million, and it's expiring. So I don't know. Very interesting. Could make a whole lot of sense here, and I think that's the biggest thing with this team right now is just hoping that they can make these not little, he wouldn't necessarily be a little addition, he's a pretty big name, but these additions that Craig Berube wants, and we don't know necessarily what Craig Berube is looking for on his team yet, but I would argue that he might make a bit of a push for David Perron because it seems like the mutual respect is there. Another article, could the Leafs target David Perron? It goes into basically saying that Perron's style of play aligns perfectly with the Leafs requirements, with Berube's requirements. His compatibility was evident time with his Blues. Like, it makes so much sense. The question is, and I'll ask you, Darius, would you prefer someone like this over the other options that are potentially out there at the projected cap hit that David Perron will get? I think we have to take into account the fact that his relationship with Craig Berube is so strong because all things being equal, I'm sure Berube would push for a guy like Perron considering that they're ultimately good buddies at this point, according to Perron's quotes there earlier on.
Yeah, I think I'd rather Perron over like Toffoli, for example, just because of cap hit. It's just not going to make sense, and the Leafs need to build the team up around the core players again, right? Like we talked about Domi and possibly Bertuzzi. If you go out and get Toffoli, it's not going to work. So I think I would prefer him. Not that they're the same player at all, but I'm just saying if you're going to fill in roles on the team, I would rather Perron, I think. And then his cap hit last year, I mean, he signed it when he was 33 or 34. And yes, it's hefty, but Detroit was in a situation where they could offer that to a veteran as well. So I don't know if he's going to necessarily get a raise. He's older. He's probably going to be a role player on wherever he signs. And it sounds like he might be opening to returning to play with Craig Berube in Toronto. So I think it'd be fun.
Very fun. I think that's the ultimate word. It would be a fun addition. Let us know in the comments, would you prefer him over Tyler Toffoli? And to wrap it up, I'll just kind of discuss this a little bit more here. And I want to ask this specific point to you regarding, could he be a good addition or a sidekick to John Tavares, which is something we haven't really spoke about yet. They mentioned in the second part of the paragraph here, it could be a solid addition to a line with John Tavares. Now, that would be a very veteran, we'll say, a very veteran line with Perron and Tavares. But I think that players like this are the ones that you need, not necessarily as your first or second line guys, but guys that ultimately make the playoffs. Do you have any quick thoughts on that before we wrap up? Because I saw some Leafs fans talking about that as well. Him being a sidekicker alongside pairing with veteran John Tavares.
We have no idea what the lines are going to look like and who's going with who and what, Craig Berube has in mind. But personally, I think the Bobby McMahon, Tavares, Nylander line will probably start the season, or we'll see, right, through training camp. I think Perron would be really nice on the third line, and maybe Easton Cowan with him or something, right, because he might end up making the team next year. So I think that would be kind of fun to have a veteran playing with, the rookie who's kind of standing out in London right now. So I think that could be fun, but who knows come training camp. I don't know if I'd put him with Tavares because they're both a little older and the foot speed might be an issue, but who knows when the season comes.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. And do you want to see David Perron on the Leafs? Let us know. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon.